You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
This is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there, ladies, things that makes official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show for 16 years and 2,800 episodes. We bring you the most amazing authors, the most amazing minds, the most amazing stories for the show to your family, friends, and relatives, or else you'll lay awake at night thinking, God, I should have invited my family, friends, and relatives to the show. I'll never be able to live it down. So don't be like that. No regrets, folks. You don't want to be on your deathbed going, I wish I'd referred more family and friends to the show. Just tell them to go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, all the crazy places we are on the internet.
Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind.
Today we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to talk about his book called Oasis 4 by Dale Chamberlain. We're going to get in with him and find out all the deets and all that good stuff. Welcome to the show, Dale. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
All right, sounds good. Pretty good is better than pretty not. I don't
Still
know.
vertical on this side of the side.
You and I. Wait, you're vertical? I'm sideways. No, I'm just kidding. So give us the .coms. Where can people find out more about you on the interwebs?
Well, there's some info there, a couple interviews, and you can also purchase a copy of the book if you want. And if you're a bookstore or some sort of reseller, if you buy 10 or more books, you get 10% off. And if I remember correctly, 100 books or more, you get 15% off. So there's some incentive to buy books if you're a bookstore, independent bookshop.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's in this book?
It's actually a series of short stories and novellas. It takes place about 500 years in the future. Fort is a space station, and it's owned by a corporation, and their purpose is to just provide a place where commerce can take place. Basically, freighters and ships show up, drop off their cargo, trade cargo, and go and go on their way from there. Which is, the sole purpose, the sole function of the station, and it's called Oasis because it's in the middle of nowhere. It's literally an oasis in space where you can resupply and do different things, and it's in an area where it's like a crossroads in space.
Yeah, like a waypoint maybe or something like that. Yeah.
Because of its function, just because of its existence, there's shady people everywhere, and there's no reason to suspect aliens will be any different.
Oh yeah, aliens, I'm sure won't be shady at all. Yeah.
No, not at all. They're not depicted real well in the movies anyway.
They're kind of sneaky. I remember seeing that one documentary about the aliens that came in the 40s or 50s, and they said they had a recipe for man. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
The documentary was scary. After that, I don't trust aliens anymore. They're always trying to walk behind me and do things to me. That or, was that prison? I don't remember. One of those two. Anyway, what made you want to write this book, and was this your first book?
I just wanted to write a short story, or a series of short stories on different subjects, different genres, whatever came to mind, and just put them all in a compilation book. But I wrote Oasis 4. That was my first one. And first short story, it's called Cloak and Dagger and Courtlax. Courtlax is a critter.
Oh, really?
But I really enjoyed that book or that story. So I wrote another one with the same characters and same situations, or, similar situations. It was actually a continuation of what was happening. And then I said, geez, heck, there's a lot of open ends here. And a lot of people said, you should finish this. So I wrote another one, and it was even longer. It was going into the novella territory. And then I said, gee, heck, there's a lot of open ends in this one. And it just kept snowballing from there.
Oh, wow.
And when you open up that can of worms, it's awful hard to close it. Tie off the story, and I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah. And so you really love this one of all your books, I guess.
It's actually my only book so far. I'm working on my second one.
Okay. So the other ones were just write-ups of short stories or something?
Yeah, I haven't published them, but
okay, they haven't published them yet.
Okay. I only got one or two short stories that I've written, and and someday I'd like to put them all in one book and sell that one.
Oh, yeah, compilation stories. Now, what is a novella for people like me who flunked English?
It's not quite a novel, and it's not quite a short story. I looked it up once to make sure I was using the word correctly, but I think it's any story that's longer than 100 to 150 pages, something like that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is it between a short story and a full story? Maybe?
Yeah. That's how I would describe it.
Oh, right there. I didn't know there was a middle ground to short stories and long stories, but that would make sense. In fact, I've often kind of wondered, I wonder if there's a thing in here.
I didn't start out wanting to produce a book that was as thick as one of Tom Clancy's books.
Yeah. I mean, some people like these shorter reads. They like beach reads because they're easy to get through. You can kind of get hooked on them early on with a good writer like yourself.
Well, that's the beauty of this book, really. It's kind of an anthology, but you don't have to bite it off all at once. Here's a story that is 30 pages long. I'll read that, and one doesn't depend on the other, but it's nice to take them in order.
Yeah,
but you can certainly pick the one of the ones toward the end and still get a lot from it.
Yeah.
You don't feel like reading a 100-page novella. You can pick one of the short stories, but it'd be a good read for someone says, I don't feel like reading a great big story. Read one of the stories and put it up for a couple of weeks.
So a lot of women love beach reads too. I mean, you could just sit on the beach and read them while you're standing in the sun, and it's exciting romp and read. And now tell us about the protagonist. I think in your book, Phil Ross. Is that?
He's a station manager. He started out life as a pilot and flying for the corporation he still works for, and he moved into management. And they put him as manager of Oasis 4, and his management style is let the people that he's under him do what they do best.
Yeah.
There's always situations that arise that demand his attention, certainly, and sometimes it's easier to look at someone's problems and shrug your shoulders and say it's not my job, not my ballywick. But he tries to do the decent thing, which is kind of a running theme. In fact, he uses that line exactly. They were thanking him for doing something. He said it was a decent thing to do.
Yeah,
which is how we should handle life. Period. But some people just have not my circus, not my monkeys. He's got a different take on the situation.
Yeah, it's I always hated that phrase, not my circus, not my monkeys. It's almost dismissive. I don't care about integrity in any shape or form around.
Well, I like the phrase. I just don't like the people who employ it.
Exactly. Yeah.
At times, sometimes I look at what goes on here and I just, that's a perfect time to use that term.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And imagine you have all sorts of scenarios that you can take and come up with aliens and all the trouble they're always getting into.
Yeah, I really struggled with do I want aliens? My personal opinion, I don't think they're out there. And even if they are, who cares? They're how many thousands or millions of light years away. We're probably never going to meet them. But they're fun to create, characters. It's a good vehicle for telling a story, I think.
Yeah.
Really? They just add a little fun dimension to a story.
Yeah, because you can make them however you want. I mean, you can kind of go out of bounds with, human nature is kind of human nature, and we're kind of limited. I'm not one of those X-Men types where I can turn blue or, special powers. But with aliens, you can do all sorts of funny stuff with them, right?
Most of the aliens in my book are humanoid. The ones that are closest to humans, they have mottled skin, but very hard to tell the difference between a Flashdon and a human. The oddest ones are the Pretars. They have, I describe them in the book, but they have 2 legs but 4 arms, and they're very skilled at whatever they do, engineering, mechanics, that sort of thing. And there's something sweet about them, just they're always eager to please, and every now and then you meet one that's kind of a twit, but there's something very, like I said, something very sweet about them that very endearing. But some of them are, they have different personalities. I wish I'd had the foresight to really expand on that. But the difference in cultures. Yeah, I did a little bit, but I don't really have a lot to draw on. That's kind of the difference between an American and an Albanian. They just have a different perspective, different ways of looking at things.
Yeah. Do you see a future coming out of this book? Maybe further books, a series, maybe?
Further books. I'm working on one now. A series of books. I'm working on one. I've got maybe two after that I'm kind of knocking around in my head. I didn't really want to make it a whole big thing, but like I said, I'll come up with, hey, that'd be a neat story, and then I say, oh, okay. And I don't want it to be just short stories again. I'm trying to stretch it out into a proper novel, not as long as not a 900-page book like I've got now, but some a little more manageable. Some people would look at it on the shelf at Walmart and go, I would like to read that.
Yeah, that would be a lot of.
I've got a couple stories that I'm working on, and I would like to get away from the Oasis 4. Maybe I was knocking around the idea of a historic novel. I live in Michigan and the Great Lakes state, and we've had some pretty interesting characters in the history of the state, and maybe I could look at some of those happenings from a third person perspective, while their own things were going on in the back, something was going on in the background that's historically accurate, but they have their own issues they have to deal with. It's something to think about.
Yeah, definitely something to think about. People love series and they love ongoing characters sometimes. It just kind of depends, really, and the appeal that's there and all that good stuff. How do you develop your characters? How do you write? What's your writing maybe habit or routine that you use to write?
I sit down and think about it. A lot of the characters. Phil Ross, just to do some name dropping. I kind of always pictured him as kind of like Drew Carey. He's kind of how would Drew Carey act in this? We're talking like old Drew Carey show here, not game show Drew Carey.
Yeah.
How would he act? And then people I know, how would they act in this situation? And then I would kind of assign, the book character, that person that I knew. Yeah. Same guy, different name, sort of thing.
Wow.
But I'm not a professionally trained writer by any stretch. I've been looking at more things online to help develop my skills, but I'm working on it.
Working on it. It's a lot of people, they want to be authors and they go, how do I get there? And it's honestly hard. It's hard to write a book. It's hard to go through editing. It's hard to finally push it out to get published. And
editing's the biggest bugaboo. The publisher I went through at first, I mentioned them, Page Publishing. They did a wonderful job. I'd recommend, a new author, start out with them. But I have to say that my experience, the editor that they assigned to me, just come off as a frustrated English teacher.
Oh, really?
And they would critique the boy. It's not a complete sentence. Oh, of course it's not a complete sentence. Have you ever heard an air traffic controller talk on the radio?
Oh, yeah.
They would get so upset with me, and they would use a good, for instance, would be said the character they were for the single young ladies, it was Miss Tilia. That's Miss Lynuna. MISS is how I spelled it. And the editors, no, that's MS. I grew up saying MS is Ms. You know, that's a liberated.
Yeah,
it's
Mr.
Ms. It's not. I want Ms. I'm trying to set a tone.
Yeah,
and they snuck it past me. You know, the first time it was printed, and I got so upset. So when I switched suppliers, I says, "Okay, we're going to re-edit this." But, you know, I will write something and I'll go back and read it.
Yeah.
And why did I write that? You know, that doesn't make sense. That sentence just makes me sound stupid, you know. So I want to rewrite it. It's just, like I said, it's such an aggravating process, really. Yeah. And I think, and I've had people proofread my stuff too.
Yeah.
And that's an essential step, you know. But like I said, after rereading it at least 5 times myself, I'll still find things that make me go, oh, what, you know, this could be better or different. And
yeah, I think that's an eternal process, because I mean, there's so many times when I read stuff to proof it, your brain kind of fills in the blanks. You ever seen one of those things where they, you know,
absolutely,
like Facebook meme where they put the wording backwards, but your brain will still figure it out or hear the word or something. And so your brain kind of does that when you're proofing stuff, and it goes, oh, I'll just fill in the blanks for them. So you do blind spot them, you scotoma them. And then when you go back every now and then, you catch it, and you're just like, how come I didn't see that before? What the fuck? You know, your brain fills in the details. In fact, sometimes I'll be like proofing and I'll be like, and the director of, wait, why is there a the there? It's director of.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll add a word that just doesn't make sense to add the or.
But I'll catch my brain. I'll catch my brain cheating me, because my brain will go, oh, of, or the, and I'll be like, wait, that does not sound right. You know, it's funny too when you read stuff out loud, like when you read it in your brain, or if you just read it out loud. You can really pick up a lot of your errors just out loud, because when you hear it out loud, you're just like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah,
who talks the hell like that?
You know, and I was under the impression, I've never been diagnosed, but I was always under the impression I was borderline dyslexic. But hearing other people have the same issues I do, you know, makes me feel better. You know?
Sometimes I wonder about me.
Yeah, but exactly. My brain will actually fill in words that aren't there, or sometimes I'll read a word. I do like to do crossword puzzles, and I'll say it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You know, that I'll have the solution in front of me. Then I'll look back at the clue, and I saw the first and last letter, and then assumed the stuff in the middle of that word was what I thought it was, and it's no, that's not it at all. You know.
Yeah, it's always a fun process, but you know, it's so hard. That's why when you tell people you're an author, they go, ooh, because it's something that takes a lot of gumption and stick with too. You know, I was ready to quit my book in editing. It was just a nightmare. And, you know, I was so sick of it all too by that point. I was just sick of proofing it and reading it and blah, blah, this, blah, blah. I was just ready. I called an author friend. I go, I'm going to shit in all this.
I think that's part of my issue now with the book I'm working on now. I don't think I've done anything with it since November, and there's been a lot of other things outside, you know, the book that I'm dealing with, and you just really can't concentrate on it. I usually work on things at night, you know, just before bed. So it's not, you know, there's other stuff I have to do at that time. It's just there's things in the back of your mind that just, you know, you're not at your best.
Yeah.
And the process is aggravating, it's it's a challenge.
Yeah, it definitely is. But, you know, I mean, that's where the greatness comes from. That's where, you know, amazing stuff that you can share with people. And I kind of like it. I mean, it's great because you can be like, you know, here's my stuff, and you can share it, and it's kind of rarefied air. There's a lot of people that compete with you in it. I mean, there are a lot of books put out every month and every year, independently, that you do kind of compete with, but still, I mean, you know, it's just such rarefied air, I guess is my point.
You know, yeah, and don't make the mistake of comparing yourself with other authors, because I just, my nieces for Christmas got me, with The Martian and Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary.
Oh, really? Yeah, that boom, the one that was a movie.
I read Project Hail Mary before the movie came out, and I was holy cow, that's exciting. I've of course seen the Martian before I read the book. What's the author's name? I forget.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just had said it earlier today. But anyway, I read that, and I'm like, man, I'm glad I didn't read this before I did my book, because I just said I am just nowhere near this quality here. But we're different takes on the same genre, I guess, or similar genres. But yeah, very, very, he's a very good writer, but you just can't make the mistake of comparing yourself to other writers, because what you find, your style, maybe someone will appreciate it better than, or more than the other style.
Definitely. It's a wild world out there, and shaping a book and telling these novellas sort of stories. You have to probably use a little bit of economy in your writing, don't you? Where you have to be like, how do you tell a story and develop characters without a lot of length, really, right?
Yeah, I think that's where style comes into it too. You can, I don't know, the book I've got now, you kind of get an idea of what people are like just by, their conversations and interactions with other people. You don't have to go into a lot of detail to paint a picture of what this person's like.
Yeah.
And their struggles and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, writing is so amazing, and there's a lot of work that goes into it and everything else. Any other advice you'd have on writing, or maybe things we want to talk about that maybe we need to promote for you?
I don't know. As far as advice, don't get discouraged. If you have a story to tell that you'd like to tell, don't get discouraged if things don't come to you right away.
Yeah. And
I'm torn between don't accept advice from other people, but a friend of mine, I had him proofread my book, and there was the two characters, the two aliens. They were fugitive trackers, and they tracked fugitives all the way to Detroit.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
they started on the space station. They were later on. They were like, we followed that one lady to a place called Detroit. But a friend of mine says you should write one of your short stories. You should write about their experience in Detroit. And I'm like, I think they let their imaginations run wild. And in 500 years, Detroit is a very different place than what it is now.
Yeah.
And I don't delve into that, but one of the aliens, she finds out a lady's from Detroit. She says, "Oh, it sounds like such an exotic place." Places don't stay the same, especially after a couple of centuries. But he wanted me to talk about their. But you can put little snippets in the stories, about things that they might have experienced while in this case while they were in Detroit. In fact, on their home planet, they were at a lake, and they said, "Have you ever been here?" He said, "No, I haven't, but it's not unlike that lake we saw on Earth." What was the name of it? Oh, Lake Erie. They said, "How can you say this lake is a lot like that? That lake was frozen solid." So you get the idea that they showed up here in the southeast Michigan in the midst of winter, in a fairly hard winter. So you kind of get an idea of what their adventures were like.
Oh yeah,
without having to write a whole short story.
Now, I think you're a pilot. Is that correct? Do you work with pilots?
I have a private pilot certificate, but I make my living as a mechanic.
Oh, okay, because those things break down.
They certainly do.
They're always flying around and breaking down. Does some of that technique in the discipline of your work parlay into how you write in the book, or maybe how you shape stories?
It gives me perspective. I can write with the perspective of someone that's been in the industry. With the fact that freight and commerce is taking place. I work for freight airlines.
Yeah.
in the on-demand freight airlines. There's a little bit of that involved. Knowing a little bit about that industry. But if you were to watch Star Trek, they say this thing is in a state of posinucleic temporal flux. They pull out a magic device, lights flash, there's a beam, and it's magically fixed. Whereas, in my novel, they have milling machines and drills and welders, and they actually have to physically, do work. And they mention nuts and bolts, and none of that goes away. It's not the magic wave an electronic wand past it and things are wonderfully fixed. It'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? So, anything more we need to talk about before we go out?
I don't think so.
Got everything in the in there, as it were.
And like I said, Chamberlain books, and you get the 10 and 50% discount if you buy in volume.
They can reach out to you on the website and all that good stuff.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, Dale. It's been wonderful to have you.
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. And thanks, Jonas, for tuning in. Order up his book where refined books are sold called Oasis 4. And you can find it with a link on the Chris Voss Show, et cetera, et cetera. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1, the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
All right, Dale. Great show. Good